Fuck it, this dude has an MG. I might die here.
Fuck, all I got's a sniper.
That's two. Pussy.
There he is. Beanie.
What's up guys, it's your boy Pharaoh Tyga here, back again with some more sweet Cuisine Royale content. In this video, I'll be shedding light on all the advanced and basic forms of movement in Cuisine Royale to help new players as well as old players get better at the game overall. Alright, so let's start with the basic movement in Cuisine Royale. You have walking, sprinting, crouching, crawling, or going prone, and you have your leaning. You could jump and you could climb. Climbing scales the jump height of the player, so when it's higher than the jump height, the climbing wouldn't work. And also, to make sure climbing is 100% performed, you need to look up. Not all the time, but most of the time, if you want it to work, you need to look up for it to work. And also you have climbing, which is pretty bugged, but maybe it gets fixed soon. You just walk up to it, either you jump or you just walk up to it and then you start climbing. Climbing down is a pain in the ass, so I usually don't like climbing ladders. As you see, it was pretty difficult to hold on to. Maybe in the future they put down a dedicated button to initiate it, but currently climbing ladders is the most backed form of movement in the game. And finally, you have your swimming. You could dive and you could float, and you could click the sprint button to move faster whilst you float, or move faster whilst you dive. You could also swim backwards, by the way, but you can't move faster whilst moving backwards. So these are the basic movements in Cuisine Royale. So the next and most important part of movement is your stamina. This is the bar that pops up at the bottom right corner of the screen, the blue bar that pops up. This is your stamina bar, and it's affected by sprinting, jumping. It's also affected by swimming. So when you swim faster, your stamina bar drains, or when you dive faster, it also drains. And also, when you're swimming, keep in mind there's another bar when you go underwater. That's your breath bar. When it depletes, your health starts to deplete as well. As you can see at the bottom right corner, it's going all the way down. And now that it's depleted, my health starts to deplete. My player starts to drown, and my health starts to deplete, so I need to go up for air. So always keep in mind there's a third bar when you go underwater, and that's the light blue bar right under the stamina bar. When stamina gets 100% depleted, player cannot jump or run. And also when it gets really low, it takes a while for sprinting to kick in. So be sure to always moderate your stamina whilst you're running. So whilst you're running, you could just listen for cues from the player. When he starts to pant a lot, that's when you stop sprinting. Pressing the sprint again stops the running. Next up, we have sound levels during movement. Crouching is the least loud. Walking is fairly loud. Sprinting is very loud. And proning, in my opinion, is the most loud amongst all the forms of movement you have, because not only is the sound level the same as sprinting, but because it's a different sound when you prone, it's very unique, so it's easy for a player to notice there's another player proning next to you. So when you prone, be sure not to move, because the minute you do, the contact you have with the foliage will cause a sound that alerts players to your location. So when you are proning, be sure not to move around at all, whether it's turning around or moving forward. Don't do it. It's either it's louder or just as loud as sprinting. While we're still on the topic of sound, going into a pool makes a splashy sound that's also pretty loud. Swimming on the surface is also pretty loud. Diving makes no noise at all. Diving is the most quiet when you're in the pool, and coming out of it also makes a lot of noise. And finally, we have movement in regards to combat. Standing gives you the most recoil. Crouching gives you less recoil. And crawling gives you the least recoil in the game. So if you can, always be sure to prone, as the recoil is a lot lesser when you prone. While sprinting, you cannot shoot or pull out a gun. The only thing you can do while sprinting is melee. Even though you can't pull out a gun while sprinting, when you initiate it, the minute the player stops, he will pull out the gun. So I'm pulling out my second gun right now. And you see, the minute I stopped, he pulled out the second gun. So the player remembers the action but doesn't perform it till the sprint animation has stopped. Alright, so also in combat, if you initiate a reload and start sprinting, even though the reload has stopped, the minute the player stops, he will continue the reload. So that's also to keep that in mind. The player never forgets. That's what you should take away from this. Alright, so regarding movement evasiveness, this is the crouching animation when it completes. In other games, when you spam it, it does this whole cycle, right? But in this game, when you spam it, he doesn't complete it. The player won't complete the complete animation. As you can see, he's somewhere stuck in the middle, because it takes a bit for him to completely go down. So crouch spamming could be helpful, but it won't be 100% helpful. As you can see, he's not completing the animation now. So it needs to be paced. If you want to crouch spam, it has to be paced. It can't be done like in COD or any other BR game. Drop shotting is pretty effective in this game. It's more effective than crouch spamming, but there's a kink to that too as well. When you start to drop shot, the player kind of plays through the animation of crawling before he starts to shoot. So it's a split-second delay, but it could change the battle outcome. So you should always make sure your drop shot takes place when the enemy is not firing at you, because the minute you try to drop shot, the animation, due to the animation delay, that could be the end of you. So drop shot is very effective, but not as effective when you are in direct combat. So you could use it, but don't try to do it when you are under fire. Alright, on the topic of evasiveness, the most evasive way in Cuisine Royale is to lean. So you could lean consistently, which helps with the evasion of shots, especially towards your head. But if you are ADSing and doing it, it kind of sacrifices accuracy when you do this. So it takes a lot of practice to get used to doing this. I'm not saying it's bad, but it takes a lot of practice to get used to this, especially on controller. And since you are not hipfire, most of the time players don't hipfire with it, which is the best way to use it. When you ADS with it, it sacrifices a lot of shots, and when you're going against a player who has a steady aim and it's of equal aim level as you, there's a higher percentage that you lose that fight. So leaning is also great, but it requires a lot of time to master. And the best way to use the leaning in combat is to use it whilst in hipfire. As you can see, that a lot of PC guys use it that way. And with the leaning with the ADS, it's not the best, but you could still make it work. When in crouch position, you can move and shoot. But when in crawling position, the player cannot move and shoot. But you can get around this by ADSing and aiming around, but not moving. If the minute you move, the player moves out of the ADS, so you can get around this by ADSing and moving around with your aim stick. And finally, you have vehicle movement in Cuisine Royale. So in Cuisine Royale, vehicle movement is pretty janky. Making sharp turns is pretty hard and very inconsistent. But all this is untrue because most of you don't use your vehicle throttle button. You need to map this to make sharp turns with vehicles, else you always have problems making sharp turns. So this is it. You map the modifier and the axis. So while driving, anytime you're about to make a sharp turn, hold down the modifier and move the axis. This makes your turning really sharp and consistent. It's virtually like a drift button for Cuisine Royale. As you can see, the turns I'm making here regularly, if you don't have your throttle button on, making all these turns is pretty hard, and most of the time you end up with a flipped over car. But with this button on, you can easily make sharp turns. You can also combine this by slowing down the car, but usually at average and almost top speeds, it's very consistent in making turns and it won't flip over the car. So be sure to have it mapped, and this will definitely make your driving experience much more pleasurable in Cuisine Royale. Alright, so that's it for the video for today. Hope you picked up something new, and I hope this video was a huge step into getting better at Cuisine Royale, regardless of if you are old or new. And if you did, please be sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more Cuisine Royale content. It's been your boy Pharaoh Tyga here. Peace out.